Finn loved rainy days. The sound of raindrops tapping against the window pane was like a soothing melody to him. Stuck inside, his imagination would run wild. He would often daydream about far-off lands and grand adventures, creating entire worlds in his mind. One afternoon, he was exploring the dusty attic of his house. Cobwebs hung everywhere, making the place look like it hadn't been touched in years. Old furniture gathered dust in the dim light. Each piece seemed to have its own story waiting to be discovered.
Hey, what's this? Finn's curiosity was piqued.
Finn spotted a trunk tucked away in a corner. It was old and covered in a thick layer of dust, almost blending into the shadows. He blew off a thick layer of dust, creating a small cloud that danced in the dim light. The old lock creaked as he opened it, the sound echoing in the quiet attic. Inside, he found a rolled-up piece of parchment. It looked ancient, with edges that were frayed and yellowed with age. He carefully unfurled the parchment. It was a map. Not just any map, but one that seemed to promise secrets and adventures. Strange symbols and faded ink hinted at a great adventure. The map was filled with mysterious markings and names that Finn had never heard of before.
Eldora and Heart of the City! Finn's eyes widened as he read the names aloud. This is a treasure map. He could hardly believe his luck.
A thrill shot through him. This was a treasure map. Finn knew what he had to do. He would find Eldora. The thought of embarking on a real adventure filled him with excitement. He packed a backpack with supplies. He knew he had to be prepared for anything.
Flashlight, check. Rope, check. He went through his list, making sure he had everything he might need. This is going to be epic. Finn's heart raced with anticipation. He was ready for whatever lay ahead. He took one last look at the map, committing the details to memory. With a determined look, he headed towards the attic stairs, ready to embark on his journey. As he stepped out of the attic, he felt a sense of purpose. This was his chance to live out the adventures he had always dreamed of. He opened the front door and stepped out into the rainy day. The rain no longer felt like a barrier, but a part of his grand adventure. With the map in hand, Finn walked down the street, his mind racing with possibilities. Every step he took felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. He looked at the map and then at the horizon. This was it. His adventure had begun.
The map led Finn to a dense jungle. Vines tangled like ropes, exotic birds called out from the canopy above. Finn felt a shiver of excitement. This was real adventure. He used his machete to hack through the undergrowth. The air was thick and humid. Strange insects buzzed around him, but Finn didn't mind. He was on a quest.
The Serpent's spine! It must be the river on the map!
The map showed a river marked as the Serpent's spine. Finn found it winding through the jungle. Its water was dark and mysterious. He inflated a small raft he had brought.
Time to navigate the Serpent's spine!
Finn paddled down the river. The jungle pressed close on both sides. The air was alive with the sounds of hidden creatures. Shadows seemed to move at the edge of his vision. Suddenly the raft lurched violently. Finn gasped as a huge snake head rose from the water. Its scales shimmered like emeralds. Its eyes were cold and yellow. This must be the serpent. Finn grabbed his paddle. He whacked the snake's snout as hard as he could. The snake hissed, a sound that echoed through the jungle. It retreated back into the water. Finn had escaped its grasp.
That was close, too close.
Shaking, Finn continued downriver. He kept a wary eye on the water. He wouldn't be surprised if the giant snake returned. After what felt like hours, the jungle began to thin. Finn saw sunlight glinting off something in the distance. As he got closer, he realized it was a massive stone wall. The wall was ancient, covered in vines and moss.
This is it. The symbols match the map.
Carved into the stone were strange symbols. They matched the symbols on the map. Finn felt a surge of excitement. He had found it. This was the lost city of Eldora.
I found it! Eldora! Section 5, the Temple of the Sun.
Finn followed the wall until he found an entrance. Stone steps led up to a massive archway. Above the archway, a carving of a sun seemed to watch him.
This must be the Temple of the Sun, just like the map said.
He stepped through the archway. The air inside was cool and still. Torches flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The temple was silent, but Finn sensed he was not alone.
The map showed a series of chambers and passages within the temple. Each one was marked with a different symbol. This was going to be tricky, but Finn was up for the challenge.
Finn entered the first chamber. The walls were covered in paintings that seemed to move in the flickering torchlight. In the center of the room was a pedestal with a series of rotating rings. Each ring had strange symbols on it.
These symbols, they look familiar.
Finn studied the rings in the paintings. He noticed that some of the symbols on the rings matched the symbols in the paintings. He carefully began to rotate the rings, trying to match the symbols.
Almost there.
Click! The rings locked into place with a satisfying sound. A hidden door in the wall slid open. Finn smiled. He was one step closer to the treasure.
Yes, one step closer!
Finn navigated through the temple, solving puzzles and avoiding traps. The ancient ruins were a labyrinth of secrets, each corner hiding a new challenge. The air was thick with the scent of history, and the walls whispered tales of the past. He dodged spears that shot out from the walls, their sharp tips glinting menacingly in the dim light. Each step he took was calculated, every movement precise, as one wrong move could mean the end of his quest, and crossed over hidden pits, their depths unknown and terrifying. The ground beneath him was treacherous, with ancient mechanisms ready to spring at any moment. Finn's heart pounded in his chest, but he pressed on, driven by the promise of the treasure. Each challenge brought him closer to his goal. The temple seemed to test his resolve, throwing obstacle after obstacle in his path, but with each puzzle solved and each trap avoided, Finn felt a growing sense of accomplishment and determination.
Just a little more, he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible over the sound of his own breathing. The anticipation was almost unbearable, and he could feel the weight of his journey in every muscle.
Finally, he reached the inner chamber. It was bathed in a golden light, a stark contrast to the dark and foreboding corridors he had traversed. The chamber was a sanctuary, untouched by time, and it felt like stepping into a different world. In the center, resting on an altar, was a glowing crystal shaped like a heart, the Heart of Eldora. It pulsed with an inner light, casting mesmerizing patterns on the walls. The sight was breathtaking, and Finn felt a sense of awe wash over him.
The Heart of Eldora? I can't believe it, he exclaimed, his voice filled with wonder. The stories were true, and he was standing before the legendary artifact that had eluded so many before him.
Finn reached out and touched the crystal. It was warm to the touch, and he could feel its energy coursing through his fingers. The connection was immediate and profound, as if the heart recognized him as its rightful bearer. He felt a surge of energy flow through him. This was no ordinary treasure. The power of the heart was unlike anything he had ever experienced, filling him with strength and clarity. It was as if the crystal was alive, sharing its ancient wisdom with him. But as he picked up the heart, he heard a noise behind him. Someone was here. The realization sent a chill down his spine, and he quickly turned, his senses on high alert. The temple, which had felt like a solitary place, now seemed filled with unseen eyes.
Who's there? He called out, his voice echoing through the chamber. The shadows seemed to shift and move, and Finn's grip tightened on the heart. He knew that his journey was far from over, and the true test was just beginning.
Finn spun around. A shadowy figure stood in the doorway. The figure wore a dark cloak that hid its face. It raised its hand, and Finn felt a surge of energy blast towards him.
Whoa!
He dropped the Heart of Eldora and rolled out of the way just as a bolt of energy shot past him. He scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding. Who was this mysterious attacker?
What do you want?
The shadowy figure lunged at him, but Finn was too quick. He dodged out of the way and sprinted for the exit. He had to escape with the Heart of Eldora.
I need to get out of here!
Finn raced through the temple, the shadowy figure hot on his heels. His heart pounded in his chest as he navigated the narrow corridors, each step echoing off the ancient stone walls. The air was thick with dust and the scent of old, forgotten secrets. He could hear the distant rumble of mechanisms resetting, traps he had narrowly avoided moments before. He dodged traps he had already disarmed, his mind racing as fast as his feet. Each obstacle was a reminder of the perilous journey he had undertaken. The floor beneath him shifted, revealing hidden spikes that he leapt over with a burst of adrenaline. He could feel the presence of the shadowy figure growing closer, a relentless pursuer in this deadly game. He couldn't believe this was happening. The legends had spoken of the Heart of Eldora, a gem of unimaginable power, but they hadn't mentioned the guardians that protected it. Finn's eyes widened as he rounded a corner, only to find another trap waiting for him. He barely had time to react, his instincts taking over as he rolled under a swinging blade. He finally reached the entrance and burst out into the sunlight. The sudden brightness was blinding, but he didn't dare slow down. The warmth of the sun was a stark contrast to the cold, dark interior of the temple. He could feel the weight of his journey lifting slightly as he emerged into the open air, but he knew he wasn't safe yet. He didn't stop running until he was deep in the jungle. The dense foliage provided some cover, but he could still hear the distant sounds of pursuit. His legs burned with exhaustion, but he pushed on, driven by the need to survive. The jungle was alive with the sounds of wildlife, a cacophony that seemed to mock his desperate flight.
I made it! But the heart! Finn panted, his voice barely more than a whisper. He leaned against a tree, trying to catch his breath. The realization hit him hard. He had escaped, but the Heart of Eldora was still back in the temple. All his efforts, all the danger he had faced, seemed in vain.
He had escaped, but the Heart of Eldora was still back in the temple. The thought gnawed at him, a bitter reminder of his failure. But as he stood there, surrounded by the vibrant life of the jungle, another thought began to take root. Perhaps the true value of his journey wasn't in the treasure he sought, but in the experiences he had gained along the way. As he caught his breath, Finn realized something. He had faced incredible danger. Each trap, each puzzle had tested his limits and forced him to grow. He had learned to trust his instincts, to think on his feet, and to never give up, no matter how dire the situation seemed. He had solved ancient puzzles that had stumped scholars for centuries. The satisfaction of each solved riddle had been a reward in itself, a testament to his intelligence and perseverance. He had navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the temple, each step bringing him closer to understanding the minds of those who had built it. And even though he didn't bring back the Heart of Eldora, he had discovered something even more valuable, the courage and resourcefulness within himself. These qualities, he realized, were worth more than any jewel. They were the true treasures, the ones that would stay with him long after the adventure was over. That was a treasure worth more than any jewel. The realization brought a smile to his face. He had set out in search of a legendary gem, but he had found something far more precious. The jungle around him seemed to come alive with new meaning, each sound and sight a reminder of the journey he had undertaken.
Maybe the real treasure was inside me all along. Finn's voice was filled with a newfound sense of peace. He looked back at the ancient ruins, a place that had tested him in ways he had never imagined. And as he turned to continue his journey, he knew that he was leaving with something far more valuable than he had ever hoped to find.